Natasha Howard. We're going to start over here on these highlights. Natasha Howard cooking Angel Reese. Oh, Angel Reese not even playing defense here. Falling asleep in the middle of the play. And then Natasha Howard says, oh, you're going to give me all this space? Cool. Even though you're giving me this space, I guess I'll just blow right by you. Whoop. Give me that. Easy take. Up, lost on the pick and roll. Lost on the pick and roll. Lost again. Slow recovery. This is the defensive player. This is the defensive.
Natasha Howard did not just beat Angel Reese. Natasha Howard exposed every weakness that Minnesota Lynx head coach Cheryl Reeve wanted the entire WNBA to see. Every possession became a test for Angel Reese, and every defensive breakdown became another brutal reminder that the Atlanta Dream are still trying to figure out how to build around Angel Reese, while the Minnesota Lynx already look like a championship machine. Angel Reese entered this matchup carrying momentum, confidence, and growing media attention after back-to-back headline performances. Angel Reese had social media celebrating her energy. Angel Reese had Atlanta fans believing the Dream could actually challenge the elite teams in the WNBA. And Angel Reese stood in front of that Atlanta crowd talking about being the #1 team in the league. Then Minnesota arrived. Natasha Howard immediately turned the game into a veteran masterclass. Cheryl Reeve turned the Minnesota Lynx defense into a nightmare for Angel Reese. Courtney Williams controlled the pace. Olivia Miles dissected the floor like a 10-year veteran. Kayla McBride stretched the defense. Every single Minnesota Lynx starter looked prepared, disciplined, and ruthless. Meanwhile, Angel Reese looked overwhelmed by the speed, the rotations, and the physicality. The same Angel Reese who was being praised for her recent stretch suddenly looked trapped inside a system that exposed her offensive limitations and defensive inconsistencies all at once. And that is what made this loss feel so much bigger than one regular season game. Because this was not simply Minnesota defeating Atlanta. This felt like the Minnesota Lynx sending a message directly at Angel Reese. A message that hype alone does not survive against elite execution. A message that Natasha Howard still belongs among the smartest forwards in basketball. And a message that the gap between contender and pretender in the WNBA is still enormous.
Up and down the court. Get out of here. Natasha Howard had Angel Reese in hell all night long. The WNBA sees Angel Reese play 2 good games back-to-back. And what do? Angel Reese has played 2 amazing games back-to-back. She's leading this team. You better watch out. And then right on cue comes a generational stinker from the Bayou Barbie.
The timing could not have been worse for Angel Reese. Angel Reese was finally beginning to quiet critics after 2 productive games. The Atlanta Dream were stacking wins. The conversation around Angel Reese had started changing from frustration to optimism. Even the WNBA social media machine started pushing Angel Reese harder, promoting her stat lines and celebrating her impact. Then the Minnesota Lynx completely flipped the narrative in 48 hours. That public declaration about Atlanta being the #1 team instantly became fuel for Minnesota. Cheryl Reeve has built her entire coaching legacy around discipline, preparation, and accountability. Cheryl Reeve does not care about hype cycles. Cheryl Reeve cares about execution. And the Minnesota Lynx played like a team personally offended by the conversation surrounding Angel Reese and Atlanta. Natasha Howard especially looked motivated from the opening tip. Every time Angel Reese tried to establish position, Natasha Howard met her with veteran physicality. Every rebound battle became exhausting. Every defensive rotation became a mental test. Natasha Howard understood exactly where Angel Reese struggles most offensively, and Minnesota repeatedly forced Angel Reese into uncomfortable decision-making. That is what made the performance so brutal to watch. Angel Reese did not simply miss shots. Angel Reese looked uncertain, hesitant, late on rotations, slow reacting to pick-and-roll coverage. And against a Minnesota Lynx offense built on quick reads and constant movement, hesitation becomes deadly. Courtney Williams punished Atlanta with control and pace. Olivia Miles carved through the defense with modern point guard precision. Kayla McBride stretched the floor. Minnesota constantly attacked gaps before Angel Reese and Atlanta could recover. The final score only told part of the story, because the real damage happened psychologically. The Minnesota Lynx made Angel Reese look disconnected from the speed of elite championship basketball. And once that perception enters the national conversation, every future performance gets analyzed through that lens. That is the danger for Angel Reese now. One bad game becomes evidence. One rough matchup becomes a larger conversation about ceiling, development, and long-term franchise direction. And the WNBA never stops talking once that door opens.
Here, now, before the game, her and Coach Carl Smesko getting up shots. Carl saying, you better finish up here. You better make sure you finish up here. You better make sure you finish up here. The problem is, Carl, these mechanics aren't going to be getting corrected overnight. You're not going to be correcting it pregame. You're probably not even going to be correcting it during the season. A whole off-season overhaul is needed to correct Angel Reese's mechanics. And I don't even know if one off-season is enough. Like 2 off-seasons of just strict focusing.
This is where the Angel Reese conversation becomes uncomfortable, because the issue is no longer effort. Nobody questions Angel Reese's competitiveness. Nobody questions Angel Reese's motor. Nobody questions whether Angel Reese wants to dominate. The concern is development. Angel Reese entered the WNBA with habits that worked at lower levels because Angel Reese was stronger, faster, and more physical than almost everyone she faced. In college, Angel Reese could overwhelm opponents through sheer force and relentless rebounding energy. In high school, Angel Reese could dominate without perfect offensive mechanics, but the WNBA destroys unfinished fundamentals. Minnesota exposed that reality possession after possession. When Angel Reese catches the ball near the basket, the footwork still looks rushed. The touch around the rim still looks inconsistent. The release point changes. The angles disappear, and elite defenders like Natasha Howard immediately recognize those weaknesses. That is why Cheryl Reeve's Minnesota Lynx look so confident defending Angel Reese. Minnesota did not panic. Minnesota did not overhelp. Minnesota trusted Natasha Howard to win the matchup individually, and Natasha Howard rewarded that trust all night long. Meanwhile, Atlanta head coach Carl Smesko faces a completely different challenge. Carl Smesko is trying to win games while also rebuilding major parts of Angel Reese's offensive mechanics in real time. That is almost impossible during a WNBA season. Mechanical overhauls usually happen over multiple off-seasons, not during nationally televised games against the Minnesota Lynx. And historically, the WNBA has been ruthless toward players who fail to evolve offensively. Defensive intensity alone cannot carry star expectations forever. Rebounding alone cannot silence criticism forever. Eventually, franchises need efficient scoring, spacing, versatility, and offensive reliability. That is why this game felt symbolic. Because while Angel Reese struggled with foundational offensive issues, Olivia Miles looked polished. Courtney Williams looked composed. Natasha Howard looked technically complete. Minnesota looked like a team filled with finished professionals. Atlanta looked like a team still trying to discover what Angel Reese truly is at the highest level.
All right, switch it. You're gonna put a little shorty on me? That ain't gonna work. That ain't gonna work. All 5 of the Lynx starters scored double digits in wins versus the Dream. Courtney Williams, 25, Natasha Howard, 22, Olivia Miles, 16, Nia Coffey, 14, Kayla McBride, 12. Folks, I'm telling you this right now. Once Nafisa Collier comes back, and I feel like I've said this every year, not specifically her coming back, this Minnesota Lynx team's no joke. No joke. They lost Alana Smith. They lost Natasha.
The terrifying part for the rest of the WNBA is that Minnesota did this without Nafisa Collier. That changes everything. Because if Natasha Howard is already dominating matchups, if Courtney Williams is already controlling games, and if Olivia Miles already looks this comfortable inside Cheryl Reeve's system, then the Minnesota Lynx ceiling becomes frightening once the roster is fully healthy. And that reality makes Angel Reese's struggles even more visible. The Atlanta Dream are trying to build identity around energy, toughness, and transition pressure. But against elite teams like Minnesota, those qualities only matter if the half-court execution survives under pressure. Atlanta's offense collapsed too often into chaos. Minnesota's offense looked organized and surgical. That difference starts at coaching, roster construction, and veteran experience. Cheryl Reeve has created a culture where every player understands positioning, timing, spacing, and defensive communication. Natasha Howard fits perfectly into that environment because Natasha Howard already thinks the game at an elite level. Angel Reese is still learning those details in real time, and financially this matters for the future of the Atlanta Dream franchise. Angel Reese is one of the biggest attention-generating players in women's basketball. Angel Reese brings social media engagement. Angel Reese brings headlines. Angel Reese brings television conversations. But eventually, the pressure shifts from visibility to winning. Fans tolerate growing pains until expectations rise, and expectations are rising fast. If Angel Reese continues struggling offensively while players from the same era continue evolving faster, the pressure around Atlanta's roster decisions will intensify. Questions about player development will intensify. Questions about whether Angel Reese can become a true franchise centerpiece will intensify. Meanwhile, Minnesota keeps building. Olivia Miles already looks terrifying inside this system. Natasha Howard looks rejuvenated. Cheryl Reeve looks completely in control. And once Napheesa Collier returns, the Minnesota Lynx may separate themselves from the rest of the league entirely. That is why this game felt bigger than one loss. It felt like two franchises moving in opposite directions.